A certain Bears rookie was turning heads today in practice. We talk about that and more next on the Unbearable Sports Podcast.
We're going to take the North and never give it back.
So that's a good pick. You get the corner. I got to go bold, right? I got to go bold for this.
Yeah, she's got some nice.
Welcome back to the Unbearable Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brad. Make sure to like and subscribe if you're out there on YouTube. And also rate the show 5 stars everywhere that you get your podcast. What's going on, everybody? Happy Monday. Bears started off training camp this week with some ups and downs, but still some really good stuff that we're going to be reporting today. So it was a big, heavy first day of pads and a lot of focus on the running game today, but there's a lot of really good takeaways, which we will get into. But first, as we always do, let's break down the injuries. So from the injuries perspective, nothing too crazy. What we saw is Zach Pearson said he didn't see Doug Kramer out there, which we learned later on. He has a knee injury, but should be reportedly day to day. Also, Zay Frazier still out with his personal issue, and Shamar Turner still out with his ankle issue. The only other injury of kind of note, first off, Karana Magaji was back today, and after being out on Saturday. But another little update too is that Passanio, the defensive end that we just signed, carted off with a hand or wrist injury, as reported by Alex Shapiro and also Brad Biggs. So I was a little bit like, okay, wrist injury, but I know it's kind of like protocol to kind of cart off a little bit, but Passanio, just something for us to at least monitor to see how severe that is. And another little side note, with Doug Kramer sidelined today, we saw Luke Newman, our rookie that we drafted this year, getting the 2s reps at center. And this is something that we talked about with him, why I personally felt like I think the Bears liked him a little bit more than some others is because he did have that flexibility at guard and center. And I also want to call this out too, because remember last year where we were trying to put Ryan Bates at center, even though that we've kind of said the dude is a guard. And so at least it feels like, hey, Newman more so the center than, say, Ryan Bates. So wanted to at least kind of call that out with injuries. But let's get into the overall instant reaction, because there's another person who's absent from that list, and that is none other than Luther Burton. Luther Burton was out there in individual drills today, but not team drills. And also, people kind of had some videos out there with Luther Burton warming up and playing in some of those individual drills. Now, not to look too much into it, we know that this guy is quick. And as we've said on this show, look good, right? It was just a couple little snaps out there. But as we know, Luther Burton, very talented, very gifted wide receiver. Like we know, should have been the first round draft pick and then dropped to us. So also another little piece too, we did have the pads on today. So with the pads on, very awesome to at least see the pads on and get some blocking drills out there. And as Brad Biggs reported, saying, hey, with this major emphasis on the run game today. Also, expect them to be with pads tomorrow as well. So hopefully we could see more reps, especially with this offensive line. Also, some other instant reactions, Burton being out there, but also the left tackle trio. Everyone got a turn with the ones today. So you saw Braxton Jones out there on 11 on 11s, which is big because we have not seen him out there yet. Then we saw Ozzie out there, and then Karana Magaji also got a turn. Yet again, they're really making this a 3-person race so that they can see who's going to be the best left tackle out there. Now, I still feel like this is just 2, and I still think that it's going to really come down to, is Braxton truly healthy? But I think part of that, I still feel like Ozzie might be the guy that they obviously they truly want out there, but we'll just have to see how healthy Braxton is. To me, I don't care who's out there as long as they can keep that quarterback upright and they do a good job. But that's really just the emphasis, or that is just the instant reaction that's out there. Let's get into our hype train winners. So the person who looked the best out there, and then we'll go over to the reality check. So flipping over to the Hype Train Award. So who was the person that turned heads? The rookie that was turning heads, that wasn't J.P. Richardson, because J.P. Richardson, as we know, he's been kind of the camp darling. But the person who got a lot of different shout outs today was Coulson Loveland. This is his second full day of practice, and we talked about it before. In his first day of practice, Coulson Loveland was looking really good and still very, very smooth. And that's actually what former tight end and friend of the show, Clay Harbor, who's been on a couple times, said about Coulson Loveland too, saying looked very smooth, had a nice grab. And then Bear Report, Brendan I always mess up his name, so sorry if he's listening, but Shagru, with Coulson Loveland saying made a great highlight catch on 7-on-7 throws, and made a couple good throws out there. So you saw Coulson Loveland, a lot of praise out there, and this is just kind of back-to-back good days of him looking good. And we kind of knew this, right? When we were seeing him as a route runner, he was phenomenal. But I think that the thing that's most impressive is that just his body composition. I said this yesterday, just people saying that he's looking big. And because when you saw him on tape, he looked very thin, looked very skinny, but it just seems like everything that you want to see out of this tight end. Now, it doesn't mean that they're going to be trading Cole Kmet next week or anything like that. This is a great thing to have if you can have two tight ends looking good. Now, obviously, the tight end position is very complex, very difficult, so he can still not have a phenomenal season. But if you have, it just seems like everything, all the groundwork is being laid and everything that you want to see out of your first round pick this year. So good stuff all around when it comes down to Coulson Loveland. And like we were saying, good grabs on 7-on-7, looked smooth. So lots of love out there. Now, also the play of the day was also from DJ Moore. It was a deep ball from Caleb, and Tyreek Stevenson was all over him, but DJ Moore came down with the ball. Wanted to report that too, just because we've said how Caleb just hasn't had a good deep ball yet in the NFL. So it's nice to just kind of see something big happening and that going out to DJ Moore. And last but not least, I want to give a little bit of love to Jaquan Brisker, because Jaquan Brisker, every single day of practice, it always seems like there's one play that Brisker makes. He gets a hand on the ball. He picks the ball off. He does something well. And it's just nice seeing Brisker out there and doing well in a contract year. But also too, if we flip over to, just the reality check, the best reality check that we got, or best, so to speak, was right out of the get-go. In the first 11-on-11 drill today, the offense, it wasn't encouraging, as reported by Bear Report, saying there was a pass breakup from Brisker, right? That's good for the defense. Then we had a false start, and then we had a play blown dead for a sack. So if you ever want to hear what the reality check is, like, this is the definition. We're coming off of a high on Saturday, and then immediately stuff like this happens. Now, this is also the NFL. Stuff like this does happen. Afterwards, we did not hear much of anything really negative. We started seeing a lot of positives with some of the throws. So the whole premise of the reality check is we have to talk about something negative. So they started off a little poor, but it seemed like throughout the day, everything seemed a little bit more equal. So you didn't see a lot of the negative reports out there, which I'll take. I'll take any day of the week. It just seemed like there was a lot of, it was even, what seemed to be kind of the general vibe out there from all the different reports being posted. So let's continue with the offense and talk a little bit more about what was going on there from an offensive perspective. And what you might have seen is just out here, Clay Harbor saying that he thought Monangai had a nice day. He was running hard, good couple grabs. And Monangai has been someone that we've mentioned that is looking good and turning a lot of heads just because he can do a lot from the running game. Now, I have heard people say too, just dropped my phone. No one else dropped it out there if you heard that on the podcast. But with Monangai, I've heard some negatives about just how he has been as a pass catcher, just not looking the most fluid out there, but on the ground, looking a lot better. So that's something that is just wanted to at least report that. Other pieces too, Clay Harbor saying the one-on-ones with O-line versus D-line, the offensive line won those. He's kind of reporting and saying the DBs got after it against the wide receivers. And also Clay posted out the first group of reps from the first team. He said Darnell Wright won against Montez Sweat. Jonah Jackson won against Javon Dexter. Drew Dahlman won versus Billings, Tooney won versus Grady, and Karan Amagaji won against Dayo Adengbo. So good things across the board with the line, but this also kind of brings up the concern about the D-line as well, right? There's the two sides of every coin. I'd rather see the offensive line doing well in these drills because defensive line drills on the one-on-ones, I feel they have the advantage, but it's just nice to see the line doing something where they're not just getting absolutely cooked every single time. So someone has to lose the drill. I'd rather have it on the offensive side because that's the thing that I feel we want. It has potential to be great, so it's nice to see that as soon as pads go on, offensive line blocked well. So you got to love that. Let me also pull up more of my notes. JP Richardson continues to play well. A couple good grabs. Like I said before, Luther Burton looked quick. I'm just kind of going through some of the other little notes that I had out there, but it looks good. So cool. So that's the offense. Just solid, like Brad Biggs reported. A lot of running today, so not a lot of newsworthy things. There's also a report too. If we flip over to the defense, Grady Jarrett looked very disruptive today with pads on. And then also another piece too, Nahshon is still the replacement for Jalen Johnson as Jalen Johnson is getting back from injury. And also too, Terrell Smith continues to rotate into the first team reps over Tyreek Stevenson, or they're kind of going back and forth. So something that we're just going to keep an eye out for because it just feels like, yet again, I still think that Tyreek Stevenson has an opportunity, but Terrell Smith, as we know, day in, day out, this is a very consistent corner. You know what you're going to be getting with them. Stevenson gives you more of the high play, high variance, big play potential at the cornerback position, which kind of is a very Dallas cornery, Dallas Cowboys corner like mentality that, Al Harris was coming over from. But still, I at least like to see Terrell Smith out there. You can't read too much into it, but it does seem like this is 2 consecutive days that they've been doing this, because sometimes they might just want to throw in different people just to kind of get them reps with the ones. But this does feel like it could be something that they now officially turn into a competition. Now, last but not least, we're going to just go through some miscellaneous news where Richard Hightower was speaking today. And Richard Hightower was asked about the multiple long snappers that were out there in their team. And Richard Hightower said everything is a competition, which you'll love to hear. He was asked a little bit about the punt return jobs as well, and didn't give any specifics as to who was going to be out there, but credited Antoine Randall for really kind of scaling up the wide receivers that they would potentially use as punt returners. And also, he had also praised Ben Johnson because Ben Johnson was active in special teams drills. Richard Hightower's been around the NFL for quite some time and said he's never seen a head coach participate in the special teams side as much as Ben Johnson. So all good things across the board today. So yeah, the offense started off a little bit poor, but still just an overall good team day today where we can just kind of feel good about this. Of course, pads are on, so now we can feel like we can start to see a little bit more about this line and learn a little bit more about this. So good stuff all around. So if you are still listening, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Hit the like as well, helps out the show tremendously. And also download the podcast everywhere you get your podcast. And with that, Unbearable Sports Podcast, we are out.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair and you know that she's a bride.